In the U.S., House impeachment managers are delivering their closing arguments to the Senate on the third day of Trump's trial. Protests in Haiti calling for President Jovenel Moise to step down are intensifying as demonstrators are met with heavy police repression. And India and China have started to disengage troops from their disputed border area in the Ladakh region. Hello and welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is from the south. House impeachment managers are delivering their closing arguments to the United Senate on the third day of Donald Trump's impeachment trial. House managers have used videos, some from early as 2015, to show how Trump's behavior over the years has demonstrated a pattern of inciting violence. They have also made the case that the former president's lack of remorse is crucial to this impeachment trial. House impeachment manager Ted Lieu argued that this show Trump will undoubtedly cause future harm if allowed. Meanwhile, manager Diane DeGette used the rioters' own words before, during, and after the Capitol attack to show that they believed they were acting on Trump's guidance. And President of the United States, Joe Biden, annulled the national emergency order on the southern border of the country that was imposed by his predecessor, Donald Trump, to justify the construction of a wall in the border zone with Mexico. In a letter addressed to the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, the president pointed out that the declaration of national emergency on the southern border was not justified in relation to the construction of the wall in that zone. Biden ordered to suspend the financing of the work. The decision of the head of state comes after he asked the Supreme Court to cancel the next hearing on the legality of the border wall. The construction of the site was also ordered by former President Donald Trump with the purpose of preventing the arrival of immigrants in the country that the magnate named as criminals. Moving on to Ecuador, the National Electoral Council of the country continues the audit of the vote count following the general elections held on February 7th. With 99.90% of the ballots counted, Andrés Arauz is consolidated as the winner of the first round of the presidential election with more than 32.60% of the vote. Meanwhile, neck and neck in second place are Yacu Pérez of the Pachacutic Indigenous Party and Guillermo Lasso of the Creating Opportunities Party, both of whom have made allegations of electoral fraud. Pérez has so far secured 19.48% of the votes, while Lasso is just ahead of him with 19.68% after having trailed behind until now. The population is still waiting for the Electoral Council to make the full results official in order to find out which of the two candidates will face Andrés Arauz in the second round. And in view of these preliminary results that leave him momentarily out of the presidential runoff, the candidate for the Pachacutic Indigenous Party, Yacu Pérez, has announced alleged electoral fraud. Pérez claimed that he had won by 10 points and stated that he would take legal action against the National Electoral Council and the Comptroller's Office. At the international level, Yacu Pérez also noted he will request a meeting with the Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Luis Almagro, the mastermind behind the 2019 coup in Bolivia. In Colombia, Cali's social and African descent movements called on Thursday for more demonstrations against systematic violence in Cauca Valley. They denounced the increased enforced internal displacements and the assassination of social leaders. This Thursday's demonstration, which will end at the headquarters of the Cauca Valley's government, also rejects the existence of armed groups and paramilitaries in Cali, Buenaventura, and Chocó. Demonstrators demanded as well the presence of President Iván Duque to address this issue. The situation in the port area of Buenaventura has been described as a humanitarian crisis and has led to protests in the area over the last 3 days. And the International Monetary Fund is set to investigate a $50 billion loan granted to Argentina in 2018 during the administration of former President Mauricio Macri. This investigation will be carried out by the fund's Independent Evaluation Office. The agency will try to determine the Argentina's compliance with the 4 criteria set forth in the Exceptional Access to Financing Policy. In this sense, the Independent Evaluation Office has expressed doubts as to whether Argentina had the capacity in 2018 to guarantee payment of its foreign debt, which is one of the requirements requested by the IMF in order to approve access to extraordinary financing. The wave of political violence rocking Haiti continues as protests demanding President Jovenel Moise's resignation intensify. Local sources reported that during a demonstration in the capital, Port-au-Prince, police used tear gas against protesters. Several people were injured as a result of the repression. Meanwhile, the civilian court of Croix-des-Bouquets has ordered the release of a Supreme Court justice arrested for his role in an alleged coup attempt, but prison authorities have refused to comply with the court order. Social organizations continue to demand the president stands down, arguing that his constitutional term in office is over as the wave of violence, economic crisis, and the lack of health care affects the country. Hungary announced on Thursday it expects to receive 500,000 doses of the Chinese Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccine next week, and that the nation has begun administering Russia's Sputnik V vaccine.
We have agreed with Russia on purchasing their Sputnik vaccine, of which we'll buy 2 million doses that will allow us to vaccinate 1 million people. We expect 200,000 doses of these in February. We also agreed with the Chinese Sinopharm. The first shipment of this vaccine is expected to arrive next week. This means that 500,000 Chinese Sinopharm vaccines will be available. It is the safest vaccine in the sense that it has already been administered to more than 30 million people in the world. Elderly people with no chronic health conditions will start receiving the Sputnik vaccine at the designated vaccination points in Budapest on Thursday and Friday. So today and tomorrow, elderly people under the age of 75 with no chronic disease will be vaccinated with the Sputnik V vaccine.
The World Health Organization's European Director Hans Klug warned in an online briefing of a false sense of security in Europe, saying most of the continent's nations are still vulnerable despite the fall in COVID cases.
At this point, the overwhelming majority of European countries remain vulnerable. Right now, it's a thin line between the hope of a vaccine and a false sense of security. Time and again, have we seen countries reopen too fast and lose hard-earned gains? I must reiterate that decisions to lift public health and social measures need to be underpinned with data based on epidemiological assessment and health system capacity. While this is good news, the decline in cases conceals increasing numbers of outbreaks and community spread involving variants of concern, meaning that we need to watch overall trends in transmission carefully and avoid rash decisions.
This Thursday, Italy began administering the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, one of 3 shots which have been approved by the European Medicines Agency. Italian Red Cross and local health workers began administering the first doses of the vaccine to doctors and medical staff as part of the country's vaccination campaign. The Italian government reviewed its vaccination plans last week after Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna reduced vaccine deliveries and after Italy's pharmaceutical agency gave a preferential use for the AstraZeneca shots for people aged 18 to 55. The government is now directing its Pfizer and Moderna shots to vaccinate people aged over 80 while designating the AstraZeneca jabs for younger people. Turkey on Thursday started administering the second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine developed by China's Sinovac company to healthcare workers across the country. It came as Turkey further expanded its vaccination campaign, with people above the age of 70 becoming eligible to receive their first dose of the vaccine. Health Minister Fahrettin Koca announced this week that people above the age of 65 will qualify as of Friday. Turkey first began vaccinating doctors, nurses, and other health professionals on January 14th. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and other politicians were among the first people to receive the vaccination in a bid to set an example. Nearly 3 million people have been vaccinated so far. To date, Turkey registers over 2.5 million infections and more than 27,000 deaths.
There are no doubts that the current vaccines are already effective against new coronavirus mutations, so I don't have any doubts about it. Now that I have completed my vaccination and I have 2 doses, I feel more comfortable against the coronavirus. Around 2,500 personnel were vaccinated in our own hospital. We have been living and working with these colleagues for a month. Nobody in our own vaccinated group and our hospital caught the COVID infection during this period.
In Spain, the General Union of Workers and Workers' Commissions Union Federation took to the streets on Thursday to demand the repeal of labor reforms and an increase in the minimum wage. More than 50 rallies were organized all over Spain in front of government buildings, with the exception of Madrid, where the protest was held in front of the Economy Ministry. In addition to the repeal of the labor reforms, unions are also demanding an end to the 2013 pension reform, which linked the yearly update of pensions to the situation of Social Security accounts. On Thursday, India and China began to pull back troops and battle tanks from a contested lake area high in the western Himalayas after an agreement was reached by both nations.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to inform the House today that as a result of our well-thought-out approach and sustained talks with the Chinese side, we have now been able to reach an agreement on disengagement in the north and south bank of the Pangong Lake. These are mutual and reciprocal steps, and any structure that had been built by both sides since April 2020 in both North and South Bank area will be removed and the landforms will be restored.
The defense minister added that both nations also agreed to have a temporary moratorium on military activities in the North Bank.
It has also been agreed to have a temporary moratorium on military activities by both sides in the North Bank, including patrolling to the traditional areas. Patrolling will be resumed only when both sides reach an agreement in diplomatic and military talks that would be held subsequently. The implementation of this agreement started yesterday in the North and South Bank of the Pangong Lake. It will substantially restore the situation to that existed prior to the commencement of the standoff last year.
This Thursday, signatories of the 2015 peace deal deemed vital for ending conflict in Mali met face-to-face for the first time in the northern city of Kidal. In a bid to curb the fighting, Malian authorities signed an accord in Algiers in 2015 with several rebel groups. The deal, among other issues, saw rebel militias start cooperating with the army and also provides for the decentralization of government in the vast nation of 19 million people. Diplomats from the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council and Mali's neighbor Algeria also attended the meeting, which comes ahead of a political summit in the Sahel. The region's former colonial power France and the G5 Sahel, a military alliance comprising Burkina Faso, Chad, Mauritania, Niger, and Mali, are due to meet in Chad on February 15th and 16th. The conflict between wildlife and humans is growing in Kenya's Amboseli National Park, despite precautions taken by placing electrified fences to prevent wildlife from entering areas that are increasingly being used for commercial agriculture. Oscar Epildi brings us the story.
Of the adult generation here, few were able to study. Like this child, they tended to their herds.
And Joseph, do you want to go to school?
What is his ambition? Simply to get wealthy.
They decided to divide land into divisions so that everybody to part his part of land. We want everybody to benefit.
The nearly 5,000 members of the group ranch felt let down by their 3 representatives. The crops produced in Namelock can now be expanded on private farms, although they claim they have also demarcated protected areas to benefit from a new common management program by tourism and conservation organizations and their donors, who rent fragile land, paying for the passage of animals, and building these electrified fences to protect communities from wildlife and vice versa.
We have people with cows, we have people without cows, and they sell that land because of poverty. They send children to school. They want also to pay the land, so because once we said we divide the land, you have to pay as a member.
We are pastoralism, so when there's no rain here, we need to move. When the land should be divided, maybe people will sell cows because everybody say you don't come to my small land. I don't want to see the cows here. In future life coming, there's no migration of cows. People sell cows, you can remain with 2 cows only for milking.
In Quimana, many plots are leased to produce tomatoes or onions. Curious about the smell, elephants visit them at night.
He destroyed this area.
The scouts of the Big Life Foundation try to prevent conflict. Kamba tenants have paid several hundred thousands to the Maasai Tajiri, or ranch owners. Ngay lights a fire to scare off the elephant as he expands his crop.
I want to expand. That's why I'm burning grass to increase the onion. Even if the elephant comes and destroys it, I have to work the land again.
The scouts are local Maasai and support the communities by guarding the wildlife corridor, which, at this entrance to the Quimana sanctuary, is only 200 meters wide. They keep the elephants away from the fence to reduce conflict. They also rent out plots of land with international donations. There is no poaching, no one kills elephants here, but the habitat in which they have lived with the herders is narrowing.
We are looking after our fence to be good, so that can look after the animals to pass the corridor.
The elephant that has just been expelled from the area later smashed the fence.
He cheated us and then came back to us and then to enter the chambers.
The electric shock is supposed to have deterred it from going through the fence.
The ecosystem management plan designates it for wildlife and livestock use only. But actually we're seeing a lot of agricultural development taking place within it. So, unless it's managed correctly, we'll see Amboseli being strangled. Amboseli requires wildlife to move in and out. It's part of the ecosystem. The ecosystem today is a lot smaller than it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago. It was probably once about 3 million acres. Today, what you could truly say the ecosystem where animals have passage and can move is maybe 1.5 million.
An ecosystem management plan and its proper implementation, the other condition for preservation.
Desde Amboseli, Oscar Rebelde para teleSUR.
Cities across China have been decorated with colorful lights to celebrate the Lunar New Year, which falls on Friday. In Sibo City of Shandong Province, major parks are all light up at night for the most important holiday of the Chinese calendar. In Hebei Province, decorative lights are everywhere. Parks, streets, and trees are all emitting festive colors during this holiday season. Colorful lights and lanterns are an important feature of the Lunar New Year celebration, and for some cities, Lunar New Year light shows are where creativity meets tradition. And with those images, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English, I am Estefania Bravo. See you next time.